and resume our video recording. Good morning, everyone, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to Making Sense of Finance, brought to you by the Pennsylvania Military Finance Alliance and the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities. We are so happy to have you here today. This morning, we're going to be talking about making our retirement nest eggs last. But before we do that, we have a very special guest from Military OneSource. Dina Jangardi is going to be talking about the resources that are available through Military OneSource. So thank you so much for your time. We are recording today's session, so we ask that you remain muted and that if you have questions, please place them in the chat box, and we will be answering those questions at the end of Jenna's presentation Dina's presentation, and then again at the end of mine. So without further ado, Dina, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. This is an awesome opportunity to be able to share what Military OneSource is and how Military OneSource can support you with making the most of your finances. I have been the state consultant for the past 12 years. I've started the program back in a long time ago, 2008, and I absolutely love the position that I'm in. I'm a former Navy spouse, and just never had this type of support ever when we were stationed in various areas of the world. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started and share with you what Military OneSource is and how we can best support you. So if you haven't explored Military OneSource, now is the time to discover this world of assistance in just in one place at your fingertips. So what is Military OneSource? And Military OneSource is many things to many people. Military OneSource is your one source available 24/7, providing information, resources, and assistance for your best mil life. We are a community with a deep understanding of military life, powered by people with extensive training and experience in military culture. It is all about helping our entire community, service members, military spouses, families, and survivors, taking advantage of all of the resources and services you have available for the most positive and fulfilling military experience. So, more ways we serve and support the military community is that we are a single source of information and assistance for service members and military families alike, because military families are critical to readiness. We offer private, discreet, individualized support through non-medical counseling and consultations. Our services are at no cost and tailored to the situation, and our information and resources are trustworthy because they come from the Department of Defense. This is a fully Department of Defense funded program, which means this is the reason why it is at absolutely no cost to you and eligible family members. So, Military OneSource serves our total force. It is so important to know the eligibility criteria when accessing or seeking support via Military OneSource. With that said, who's eligible for Military OneSource services? All active duty National Guard and Reserve component service members, this is the key, regardless of your activation status for our National Guard and Reservists. Immediate family members, Coast Guard when activated with the Navy. I always have problems with this word, expeditionary civilians, 90 days free until 180 days post-deployment, retired or discharged honorably to include a general discharge up to 365 days past separation. This was an increase because in the past it was 180 days past separation. Now you have a full year. Survivors, non-married spouses with children, and children. Eligibility begins when the service member enters the military, and for the most part ends 6 months after transitioning out. but we've extended that for up to a year. Extended program eligibility reaches anyone who is enrolled in DEERS, the Defense Enrollment Eligibility Reporting System. And there are more details about eligibility when you visit the Military OneSource website. And every slide you will see that you will see the militaryonesource.mil. That's our website. That's the public side of Military OneSource, including the 1-800 number. So this is my favorite slide to talk about. So like when you are calling Military OneSource and you always get to meet with a live consultant. So like the phone rings, maybe it may ring once or may ring twice, but there is going to be somebody on the other end waiting to assist you. You get to meet with someone. They'll ask you questions, go through a full assessment. When you think you're calling about one specific thing, you'll be pleasantly surprised that everything through Military OneSource is interconnected. So we have an individual that's calling maybe about what we're talking about, financial counseling and tax consultation. And I'll talk about this further in another slide deck through, further conversations with that consultant. You might pull some information out of you, and you might be interested in learning more about the SECO program, the Spouse Education and Career Opportunities. Oh, and you might want to, you might have some questions about education. The thing of it is we're literally your one-stop shop. So we help with everything, like, everything in between, and we connect you to resources that you need to thrive. So privacy protections, when you contact Military OneSource, is definitely private and confidential. The privacy protections ensures your personal information will not be provided to the military or chain of command, shared with family or friends, released to other agencies as well. This means that a family member may seek non-medical counseling without the knowledge or consent of the service member. Or a service member may seek non-medical counseling without the knowledge of the command. That even goes for financial counseling, which is unlimited to you. But like I said, I'll talk to you about that in another slide. But there are some exceptions when calling Military OneSource and reaching out. So Military OneSource consultants, including non-medical counselors, have a duty to report some situations to appropriate military and civilian authorities. Privacy exceptions include the following: duty to warn situations. This is very important. Suspected family maltreatment, domestic violence, child or elder abuse or neglect, harm to self or others, illegal activity. And if you have any questions, and if you have any doubt, always call Military OneSource, because Military OneSource consultant can provide further details. And we're 24/7. So anytime that you have any questions, please don't hesitate. Give us a call. So here we are with the fun stuff. Military OneSource offers a wealth of tools and services to help service members and family members. The financial counseling and meal tax services are some of the things that I'm going to highlight today. So through the financial counseling, Military OneSource makes it easy to connect with experts, access powerful financial tools, and get proven practical financial information and resources, including military pay charts and calculators. And remember, this is at no cost to you. Connect with a financial expert that you can trust. The financial consultants that you'll find through Military OneSource can help with many of your money issues, from budgeting and money management to debt reduction and taxes. So you have access to speak with a trained professional on your own terms, by phone, live chat, through a secured video chat. So let's discuss a few ways that Military OneSource can help. We can help with financial basics, debt coaching, college savings, retirement planning. You're going to learn more about, the retirement later on in this presentation, in the next presentation. Tax services. Did you know that you had access to tax counseling free through Military OneSource. I believe on the 17th, we wrapped up the tax year. If you haven't got your taxes done and you filed for an extension, you have access to free tax counseling. Please don't dismiss that. That saves you a lot of money. And budget planning. So accessing free financial tools and services through Military OneSource is easy. You have access to personal finance calculators, calculating for your retirement, hint, hint, using your first check to finance a new car, want to save for college, buy a house or put a down payment on that, or pay down your credit card debt. Military OneSource has a collection of 11 military finance calculators to show you the best way to pay for your life expenses. We also have a plethora of podcasts and webinars. I'll just name a few. Money Matter courses. Those are 5 courses outlined for the fundamentals of money management and helping you to become financially savvy. Blended Retirement System webinar. So through this, it's an overview of the Blended Retirement System Education Plan for service and family members, as well as a question and answer session with program and policy directors. And Repairing Your Credit podcast. While there's no quick fix for repairing bad credit, you can dispute information on your credit report and you can learn your rights in this podcast. Another podcast that we have is Big Fun on a Small Budget. Trimming your budget down doesn't mean doing away with fun altogether. Your local MWR department is full of options that won't break the bank. So with Military OneSource, there is just a lot of information and I don't have time to cover it all, but I just wanted to touch on a few things here on this slide. In addition to all of the resources that we've already talked about, the Military OneSource website it just has a lot of assistance and information. The site has a responsive design to readily accommodate users on their mobile, and we do have an app too. I do not want to miss that. If you go into your Play Store and you look for My Military OneSource, that right there is access right in the palm of your hand. So the site, like I said, has a responsive design to readily accommodate users on their mobile, tablet, and desktop devices so that you can access the extensive resources and support 24/7 from anywhere in the world. So that was a quick tour of the large and extensive information that we have in the universe of Military OneSource that is all waiting for you. So please turn to us anytime. That you can rely on us for worldwide access 24/7, 365 days. You have access to free confidential support, objective and experienced experts, current and practical information and tools, and a commitment to help service members and military families thrive. This concludes my portion of the webinar. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Dina, I have to tell you, I had no idea that Military OneSource had so many fantastic opportunities for military enlisted and families. I am so impressed. I wish that we had more time to hear from you about some of those great programs. But I will tell you that there are a couple of questions in the boxes that I wanted to go over with you. In the meantime, if anyone else has questions, I know Dina has a couple minutes and she's happy to answer those questions. So the first question came in: if someone is already retired, is OneSource available for up to 365 days past the separation? Is that the limit? It's on up to 365 days?
So that question is, that's why you need to know who I am, because if you're searching for like the financial counseling that I spoke of, and you're already out of the eligibility criteria, you're past the 365 days, linking with me, I can help you find the free financial counseling through the resources that I find within our area. So one of the other things that I do as a state consultant is I locate and research and find resources in the Pennsylvania area, and it goes through the vetting process, and it also gets posted on the Military OneSource website. So when in doubt, I always encourage people to call the 1-800 number, but I'm looking to develop and increase the utilization of the state consultant, because there's so many resources out there. And if you're not eligible for Military OneSource, hands down, I can find you another program that you could be eligible for.
That's great, Dina. I love that when in doubt, I always tell consumers, when in doubt, reach out, because, we are, as service providers, I know that we're always coming across new options and new resources. So I love that you are so hands-on. I think that's terrific.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So there's another question. Can a family contact Military OneSource when a death occurs to a vet who's not married? Like specifically how the burial works.
Oh my gosh, yes. And the irony in that is I am going to be meeting with the survivor outreach coordinators at 1 o'clock today. I have created a FAQ list that explains how Military OneSource can best support a survivor. We have so many resources out there. I know I didn't do a live presentation, but if you were to go onto the militaryOneSource.mil site and look under the family and relationship section, you'll see a section in there where it's Gold Star families. So that there breaks down all of the support that we have for survivors. But again, reaching out to me, I can connect you right to the survivor outreach specialists that are in the state and other states.
That's fantastic, Dina. I love the warm handoff. That concept of um, being able to hand that off and put me into connection with, somebody um, that knows, so that I don't have to call a whole bunch of different places, I think is really reassuring.
Absolutely. I am not the expert, the subject matter expert when it comes to survivors, but I know the people that are. And at the end of the day, it takes a lot for an individual to pick up the phone and even reach out for help. So that warm handoff and that assurance of knowing that when I talk to a person and they're flat out telling me, I'm not the SME, I'm not the subject matter expert in this area, but I know who is. That not only just brings the tension and the stress down that that individual is looking for that specific type of resource and help, but it also just validates, the support and who, those service providers are, and that we are in it for that person. We are here to support that individual that is seeking that help. I always say, please don't Google your information. Don't go out there and Google when it's just so many, when you could just reach out to the state consultant. And trust me when I tell you, I look forward to helping.
That's fantastic. I definitely feel that from you, Dina. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'm not seeing any more questions. Uh, Let me just make sure really quickly.
And if I may, because I keep telling everybody, reach out to your state consultant. I'd love to give you my telephone number.
Is it okay if I type it into the chat for people?
Absolutely.
All right,
Please
Dina,
do.
go for it. Go ahead.
So 717-461-0429. That is my work number. You can text me, you can call. And honestly, I just look forward to being able to help.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Dina, I will. Okay, so someone asked us to repeat that. It's 717-461-0429. And I've put that in the text box for everyone to see as well, in the chat box.
Awesome.
Dina, if you will send to me this slide deck, at the end of today's session, I will be sending out both slide decks. And if it's okay, I can go ahead and include your contact information as well.
That's awesome. Yes.
Okay, terrific. Thank you so much, Dina, for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the sunshine.
After we finish today's session, but not
Yes,
before.
exactly, exactly. Thank you all. Be well.
Take care, Dina. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, give me just a few minutes and I will get our PowerPoint going here. My name is Katrina Boyer. I am the Investor Education Coordinator for the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities, and I am thrilled to be able to facilitate today's session, as well as to now be able to talk with you about how we can make our retirement last. Because the reality is that we work really hard for years and years and years. And one of the biggest questions that I get is, Katrina, how do I make sure that what I have is going to last? So today we're going to actually be talking about this sort of in this two-part presentation. We'll talk about making the money that we have last, and then we're also going to talk about how can we protect it from scams, because criminals know, particularly for military and veterans, believe it or not, military veterans and their families are the #2 target for frauds and scams. And it goes into even the retired individuals. So I want to make sure we're going to talk about 3 specific investment scams today, but I need you to understand that there are many other scams that are out there that target military. We've already had a presentation from the Attorney General on May 5th about veterans focused scams. We had the Better Business Bureau yesterday who talked about spotting scams for veterans. And we're actually going to wrap up the whole month-long series on May 26th, where AARP is going to be playing a really fun game called Consumer Fraud Bingo. It's a virtual bingo game. So if you haven't already registered, I would encourage you to do that, because it really is a very fun way to sort of be reminded about different frauds and scams. But I want to go ahead and move into how can we make what we have last. And one of the biggest things that we need to do is we need to remember all of the different sources of income that we have, whether you've got a pension, your TSP, your blended retirement. I know Garland Murray is going to be talking on next Tuesday at noon, specifically about military TSP and blended retirements. So again, if you haven't tuned into that, I would encourage you to make sure that you register so that you take advantage of those very targeted military opportunities that are available. But when we start to think about our sources of income, make sure that we remember Social Security, any pensions. My dad actually retired and had completely forgotten about 2 different pensions that he had paid into when he worked for a union. So he was very pleasantly surprised to find that he had a couple hundred extra dollars coming in every month that he hadn't really thought that he was going to have. And while $200 or $300 may not sound like a lot of money, it adds up. And $200 or $300 a month can help to pay for insurance, car insurance, homeowners insurance. It can help to pay for prescriptions, medical benefits, those types of things. So we want to make sure that we are aware of all the sources of income that we have coming in. And then we've also may have some of those non-traditional sources. Maybe we started investing in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or money markets when we were young and just kind of kept putting that money away to build wealth. And then suddenly we lost track of it. Or maybe you have invested in an annuity. Annuities are an insurance product. They are incredibly difficult to be honest, I have a difficult time wrapping my head around it. So it's important, if you're going to go into an annuity, that you genuinely understand the product that you're getting into. And you can find out more information about annuities at investor.org or NAIC.org. And the Pennsylvania Insurance Commission also has some really great resources, and I'll provide you with their web address at the end of today's presentation. The other non-traditional source of income that I think is always really important to mention is having a side job or owning a small business. You know, if it's working part-time at your favorite store, or maybe you've got a special talent, make sure that you are considering those things as well. And then as we start to think about that, we also need to think about the required minimum distributions that the IRS mandates, that we pull a certain amount of money from our retirement accounts once we hit the age of 72. It used to be you had to be 70 and a half to pull. The federal government changed that rule with the Secure Act to being 72 years old. There are two exceptions. If you've paid into a Roth IRA is different from a traditional IRA because Roth IRAs are paid for, are funded after tax. So when you pull that money out, you're not paying tax on it. But you have to make sure that it's a Roth IRA and not a traditional. Or if you're still working, you may not have to pull from that fund that you're paying into. But the website irs.gov has some really great publications, and I would encourage you to make sure that you are taking advantage, that you are pulling out that money, because the penalty for not pulling out that required minimum amount of money from your retirement accounts is 50%. So if you're required to pull out $3,000 a year from your IRA and you don't do it, you're going to pay a penalty of $1,500 for not having taken the money that's yours. So it's really important that we understand that and we don't miss out. I don't know about you, but I work too hard for my money. I certainly do not want to give it away by penalties. So make sure that you are aware of what those required minimum distributions are. So talk about the fun stuff. How can we spend down the money that we've worked so hard for and not run out? Because we see on TV people taking these, around the world tours. We see people driving the fast, beautiful cars in their retirement, and that's all fine and good. But what happens if I spend it too fast and then suddenly I don't have enough left for my long-term well-being? So there's a couple different strategies. The first one we're going to talk about is the 4% rule. The 4% rule basically is saying that you're going to take 4% of the total that you have in savings. Now, this is not considering money that you have coming in from Social Security or anything like that. But if you're pulling 4% of your total savings that first year, it's a really good starting point, because traditionally our investments earn more than 4%. It's often 6 to 8%, sometimes even 10, depending on how you are on what you're investing in. So you can adjust that every year based on inflation, but again, you need to watch, see how your investments are performing that year, and if you need to adjust, make sure that you're able to do that. And you want to make sure that you're not spending your savings faster than your accounts are earning, because if we spend more than we make, we're going to end up losing. So if your goal is to make that nest egg last, making sure that you're not spending more than you're earning is a good way to be able to do that. But I want to talk about the bucket strategy. I don't know about you, but I am a very visual learner. So the bucket strategy, I think, is very helpful when you look at the long-term big picture. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to divide that money that we have into 3 different buckets. Bucket number 1 is where we're going to keep the money that we need currently to live on. So it's our living expenses for the next 1 to 2 years. It is including our Social Security payments, our military pension, our, our 401k disbursements, all of those things. That money for the next 1 to 2 years is going to be held in a financial institution like a bank or a credit union or savings and loan, because we have easy access to it when we need it, and any money that we have that comes in from regular streams of income, again, that's Social Security, any pensions, retirement payments, those types of things, dividend payments maybe, anything that's automatically coming to you should go into this bucket for current living expenses. And as you calculate how much money you need in that bucket, make sure that you keep in mind that $1,500 or $2,000 a month that's coming in as you start to think about how much you need to have in that first bucket. So you're keeping this money in an account that's at a financial institution. It's not going to earn you a lot of money, but you don't have to be concerned about the ebbs and flows of the market. So in bucket number 2, we're going to keep money for the next 3 to 5 years. So if you think bucket number 1 has immediate, bucket number 2 is this sort of in the middle place. We can keep money in a more conservative account, maybe bonds or bond funds. And what we're going to do is we're going to keep that money in that bucket until it's time to put more money into bucket number 1. And so we're going to transfer from one bucket into the other. Again, we'll be earning a little bit more in bucket number 2, most likely, than we will in bucket number 1, because that's in a financial institution. Those conservative investment accounts, they're going to earn you a little bit more. Certainly probably not going to make you rich, but being able to replenish bucket number 1 is really important. Bucket number 3 is the biggest bucket that we have. And that's the money that we don't need for at least 5 years. Bucket number 3 is going to focus on growth, our long-term investments. That's where we're going to make our money. So whether that's the stock market, a mutual fund, an exchange-traded fund, real estate, whatever it is, that's where we're planning to make our money. So we want to keep as much money as we can in that bucket. But we have to be aware of those ebbs and flows in the market so we don't panic when the market is down. At the start of the pandemic, we saw a big dip in the stock market, and values of our investments likely dropped. But the reality is that has come back. It's very similar, in the housing crisis in 2008, 2009, we saw huge losses. But just a couple weeks ago, we hit an all-time high in the markets. So the reality is that this money that you don't need for at least 5 years can focus on that growth, because we have time to recover any losses that the bucket may see, which is really important, right? We want to make sure that we are making the best use of our resources as we can. So bucket number 3, again, it's that bigger bucket that we're going to not need for a long time. We can put it there and let it grow. So when we put this strategy sort of to work all together, we've got, the larger bucket refilling the middle bucket, and that in turn is refilling the smaller bucket for our immediate expenses. As I said, this for me works really well because of the visual portion of it. I think it makes sense. If you have any questions, I'm absolutely willing to answer them at the end of the session, or I'll provide you with my contact information and I can provide you with more resources on that. But let's give you some homework. We're not done yet. We're not even halfway through, but we're working on it. You can see the difference in how different spend down rates impact your overall financial health. Remember, we talked at the beginning about the 4% rule. Well, what if you want to enjoy more travel time? And so instead of 4%, you want to try to live on 6%. If you go to nerdwallet.com or your investment firm's website, or you simply type in spend down rate, the impact of different spend down rates in your favorite search engine, you'll find lots of different websites that allow you to put in how much you have saved and the percentage that you want to withdraw every year. And it will tell you, based on those 2 items, how long that money will last you. That can be very helpful when we start to think about, how long, what's our long-term, life goals. Are we going to live to be 85? Are we going to live to be 100? Making sure that however we spend that money is going to last can be really important. And then you can get specific information about taxes and retirement at irs.gov. I get a lot of information from the IRS's website when it comes to talking about withdrawing our retirement and different amounts that you can save and different amounts, the required minimum distribution and all of those things. So make sure that you check that out. It can be very helpful. So as we start to age, getting advice that we need is really important. So we want to make sure that we hire a strong team that we trust. And just because the guy down the street uses a guy or knows a guy doesn't mean that they're reputable. So it's important that you do the homework. A financial advisor or counselor is going to help you figure out your plan, and they can help you put it into motion. They may or may not be a fiduciary. A fiduciary is someone who is required by law to act in your best interest. And typically a financial advisor or counselor is going to help you to protect your assets. Now, where that gets to be sort of this fuzzy line is that some investment professionals are stockbrokers and they don't have the same fiduciary duty. They are required to put you into suitable types of investments, but they don't have to they're not necessarily have that fiduciary duty. So making sure that you ask those questions is really important. Also, hiring an attorney, being able to know that you're able to provide for your loved ones, that you're, planning for your estate. Again, having someone that you trust is really important. So knowing whether or not your professional has that obligation is important. Doctors, attorneys, and CPAs, accountants, they always have a fiduciary duty. Insurance providers and certain financial services providers don't have a fiduciary duty, They may have to put you into something that's suitable, but it may not be required by law that they do what's in your best interest. Now, when you're considering hiring a professional, they have to provide you in writing whether or not they have that fiduciary duty. If they don't, they're required to tell you about any potential conflicts of interest, which can be very helpful. So when they provide you that written statement, they have to tell you how they're going to get paid. They have to tell you about potential conflicts of interest. If XYZ, technology company is going to give them a kickback for investing through them or getting them, new investors, they have to tell you that. And it's okay. And I think that we should all feel comfortable enough with our professional to ask them what their duty is. So you can investigate different professionals, and I think that's really important. None of us would go to a doctor who didn't have a degree to practice medicine. Don't hire an investment professional that isn't registered. So you can check that through brokercheck.finra.org, and you can get information about their previous work history. You can see if there have been complaints filed, et cetera, et cetera. BrokerCheck is a great resource. You can investigate your attorney. You can contact the county bar association in the county that you live, but you need to understand that the bar association may not be able to provide you with a complete list of attorneys in your area because not all attorneys are a part of that county's bar association. But if you go to padisciplinaryboard.org, you can find out if the attorney that you're considering has had any disciplinary actions taken against them. So that can be very helpful. You can verify your insurance professional if you're thinking about an annuity or the long-term care insurance, whatever insurance you're thinking about getting, you can verify that company as well. Again, don't go to a doctor that doesn't have a license. Don't use an insurance broker or an insurance agency that doesn't have a license. So you can do that at insurance.pa.gov. So we've got about 10 minutes, and I want to spend some time talking about how we can protect that nest egg from the criminals, because we have to know that those criminals are out to get our money. The first type of investment fraud I want to talk about is infinity fraud. Criminals who are perpetrating affinity fraud rely on the trust that we have within our community organizations, whether it's our church, civic club, maybe it's our golf club, or the local baseball group, whatever it is. They rely on creating this sense of camaraderie in order to help us to trust them, bring our guard down, and then they tell us about this great investment. Before you rely on human emotion, make sure that you check with BrokerCheck. Make sure that you contact your state securities regulator to make sure that the investment opportunity is legitimate. There's a video that I usually play, but it doesn't work real well with WebEx events. But basically, it was a scenario that was a combination of a Ponzi scheme and affinity fraud, where this guy took advantage of the relationships that he had within his church, and he convinced the parishioners to invest in this company that was going to be selling sets of pots and pans to culinary schools, colleges, and other technical schools. And he guaranteed to his investors that they were going to make this astronomical return on their investment. And because they went to church together and because they had these things in common with this gentleman, they trusted him. But the reality was there were no pots and pans. He relied on the money that he got from new investors to pay the original investors. And eventually it was discovered that not only was he stealing these people's his friends' money, but there wasn't even a company to be had that could possibly sell the pots and pans. And so the moral here is it's great to trust people, but it's also important that we verify and check everything out before we invest our hard-earned money. And so speaking of hard-earned money, let's talk about those free lunch invitations that we get in the mail, where we get this beautifully printed, glossy, expensive invitation telling you that you can get this amazing dinner or this amazing lunch, steak, lobster, dessert, the whole 9 yards. But you have to listen to this short presentation. And the people who provide you with this information, you know, they're experts in their field. They guarantee that you're going to get this amazing return on your investment. But the catch is you don't even get to have a sip of water until you listen to their sales pitch. Or they may tell you that this is just an educational session and you don't have to worry about anything. Just show up, listen to the talk, and enjoy your meal. And there's no risk. Well, what happens is as soon as you get home, or you may not even get home, and your cell phone is going to start ringing. And that's where those high pressure sales come in. One of the volunteers from our AARP volunteer group went to one of these, and it was a promotion for an annuity. And when she did the calculation, had she invested in the annuity that they had suggested that she buy, she would have had to live to be 100 and I don't know, 100 more than 100 years old in order for her to be able to have that annuity financially make sense. And she realized that she's likely not to live to be that old. So had she been fooled by those high pressure sales tactics, she could have found herself in a whole lot of financial trouble. So it's important that we don't act on that full tummy. Make sure that you take the time to think about whether or not something makes sense to you. So as we get closer to wrapping up, I want to talk about Ponzi schemes. Charles Ponzi was the first person who committed the scheme. Basically, it's a pyramid scheme. There's no business. Money is paid through new investors to original investors, and the only person who really makes any money is the person at the top. Now, when we think of Ponzi scheme, we probably think of Bernie Madoff. He was arrested in 2008 and he actually pled guilty to 11 felonies, and he stole billions of dollars from consumers. He pled guilty to money laundering, false filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission, and in 2009 he was sentenced to 150 years in prison. Now, he passed away this year, but the reality was he got no leniency. The judge threw the book at him. And you know, when we think of Ponzi schemes, we think of Bernie Madoff, but the reality is, if you look through local news, if you look through, you know, the U.S. news, the reality is that Ponzi schemes, Ponzi criminals are being busted left and right. But if we do the research and do our homework, we would not fall victim to things like that. So how can we protect ourselves? Before you do anything with your hard-earned money, investigate. If something sounds too good to be true, realize that it probably is. And know that you've worked really hard to build up that nest egg. Make sure that the person that you're working with is licensed. Make sure that they're registered. And we talked about broker check, but I'm going to provide you with another couple resources that you can check. And again, before you invest in a specific product, research it. Make sure that it's not some criminal who's really good with making PDF documents to make really pretty brochures and publications that tell you about the great investment opportunity that you have. Do the research and make sure that the underlying information is true and accurate. So as we wrap up, I do want to provide you with some resources. My office is the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities. We have a website, dobs.pa.gov. If you go into our publications and reports page, you will find oodles and oodles of really useful, non-commercial publications that can help you learn more about hiring an investment professional. They can help you learn more about how to verify your professional or the product that they're endorsing. It can help you to plan for your retirement depending on where you are. There's a lot of really great resources. Also, if you are considering an investment and you're not really sure how to check it out, you can call our office at 800 PA Banks. What I think is really cool, when you dial that number during regular business hours, a real live person should answer your call. I think that's amazing. You can call the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office if you if you have become a victim of a fraud or scam. You can call my office, you can call the Attorney General's office. Both of those organizations will provide you with the resources and give you those step-by-step instructions that you need to take. Again, I mentioned broker check, brokercheck.finra.org, to verify the investment professional that you are currently working with or you want to work with. wi65.org. Earlier, I mentioned a video that I wanted to play. I'm going to send a link to those videos. But if you go to wi65.org, they have some really great resources. That is a documentary. When I'm 65 is a documentary that was created, but they've broken it into a whole bunch of small segments that can be really helpful with planning your retirement, depending on what age you're at. If you type in investment scams, it will bring up a whole library of videos that talk more specifically about lots of different investment scams. And then the Investor Protection Trust at investorprotection.org is another really fantastic resource where you can go to learn more about saving, investing, and planning for your future. Because the reality is, I had about 40 minutes today. I could talk about planning for your retirement, protecting your assets. I could talk about that all day, just about every day, and we wouldn't cover it all. It's sort of this ongoing learning process. So if you check out investorprotection.org, they can provide you with some more of those resources. I want to thank you so much for your time. My name is Katrina Boyer. I'm the Investor Education Coordinator for the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities. It has been my pleasure chatting with you today about the Making Sense of Finance project and about making your retirement investments last. I am going to formally stop our recording now. And then if there are any questions, you are free to place them in the chat box and I will answer